What's up, everybody? It's the Legend of W here, and I just want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. I completed the game, I witnessed the ending. There's so many things running in my mind right now, but I did take the time to recollect my thoughts. I'm a little more chill right now. I had some cold water and all that, but now that I completed the game, I just want to give my thoughts about the game as a whole. What do I think about the ending? What do I think Square will take this game forward, since this is just the first part of a multi-series? I don't know how many parts they're going to make, but I imagine they're going to make at least, I don't know, 2 more at the very least. But I think it might be a 4-part series in my opinion. And see what can happen for the future of Final Fantasy VII. So let's go. After playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'm actually on board with Square making this a multi-part series for the reason that the story and the characters are a lot more richer than the original. Looking back at 1997, storytelling back then was very simple in comparison. I love the original Final Fantasy VII, but one of the things I've always been critical of is the storytelling. Sometimes it would either be too simple or too vague. And the story is amazing, but I felt that certain parts could have had more detail. So in this instance, Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, they're kind of there in Final Fantasy VII OG, but they kind of just left. They disappeared. We didn't really get to know them that much. Even the people of Midgar, we kind of just, see them here and there, but we don't really know too much about the people of Midgar besides just a simple explanation. But in the remake, we got to see a lot more detail. There are a lot more conversations from the people of Midgar. We get to know Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge a lot more as individuals, and their characters shined. I mean, the main characters shined. These guys, they shined a lot, in my opinion, and that's something that I really appreciate about the storytelling in the remake, is there's a lot more detail. And that's something that I hoped for, and we got it in this game. Wait, why am I wearing this? I'm just talking. Another reason why I believe the storytelling is very good in this game is that Final Fantasy VII Remake, at least Part 1, is not an open world game. I know there are a lot of great stories in these open world games, but one thing that I feel is problematic is the pacing behind those stories. Sometimes it would go really high, but then it would just drop down rock bottom, and it just feels very flat at times. And thankfully, Final Fantasy VII Remake didn't go through with that. Instead, Square decided to just make more of an interconnected world, a lot smaller, but a lot more involved. And I think that's why the story pacing and the storytelling in general feels a lot better. Now, I don't mind if Part 2 is a big open world. Actually, I would be very excited to see a big open world in Part 2, but if by any chance Square decides to not do that and just make more of what they did in Part 1, which is an interconnected world, only maybe a little bit bigger, I wouldn't mind that at all for the sake of storytelling and good pacing. I think that would actually be a lot better, but at the same time, I have faith that if they do make an open world, they'll fix those issues that I see common in other games. I remember in one of my reaction videos of Final Fantasy VII Remake, specifically in the Honeybee end part, it gave me the strong impression of the Yakuza series from Sega. Just the way that it felt, how it was presented. And then when I play the game more and more, I actually agree with Maximilian Dude. For those who don't know, he's a great guy. I don't know him personally, but you should check out his channel on YouTube. Makes great content. He mentioned the same thing. He had that same impression as I do. Final Fantasy VII Remake really does feel like Yakuza, but Final Fantasy. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a mix of Final Fantasy with a little bit of Kingdom Hearts and Yakuza. I think that's the best way to describe the remake. I don't know, I find it funny because I didn't really expect it. It was a good surprise. Now, another thing that makes this game shine a lot is the combat system. It's one of the most fun mechanics that I've played from Square thus far. I think it's the best that Square has done thus far right now. I know that there's always room for improvement, but I believe as of right now, it's the best that they've done. It's a mix of Kingdom Hearts, a mix of the old school JRPGs. It just balances so well together. In general, Final Fantasy VII Remake is an action RPG, but Square has made it possible to balance it out so that way it's not just action but strategy, and I think that's very, very good. I also believe that because of the combat system, everybody in the game is essential. And that's not to say that the characters in the old game weren't all essential, but some just were a little underpowered in my opinion in comparison to others. And of course, there are some things that they can improve upon, like the air combat. I feel that the ground combat is really, really well done, but somehow there's really little happening with the air combat. You just kind of jump and just do some attacks, but you don't really pull off anything cool. And that's something that I believe Square should improve upon. Also, another thing that I really, really do hope that we see in Part 2 is have linked attacks like in Chrono Trigger. Maybe even linking up your character with their summon and pull off this crazy link attack that would do massive damage. Make it cool. Like, I don't know, it sounds crazy, but it would be something cool to watch in my opinion. So to improve the combat, I would say just improve the air combat and add linked attacks, and it would make the combat so much better. The materia system is basically just like the original game. Even though certain things are limited, I think it's still well balanced out. How to improve the materia system? I guess add just more materia, add more things that we can link and make it interesting. If they can add different things that, I don't know, cause a different type of effect in the game, maybe that would be great. I have no clue what, but keeping it just like the original is perfectly fine for me. Now, for the music in this game, man, it's like you take how do you take a masterpiece and take it to the next level is something that I don't see every day at all. The original soundtrack for the game is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. And to take that original soundtrack and take it to the next level and beyond that and even more beyond that is something that I probably won't see for a very long time, to be honest with you. It's just an amazing soundtrack. I nearly had a tear drop while listening to it. It's something very special to me. And the music is such a huge part in the game. I think a huge part for everybody else as well. I think it's safe to say that. But for me, it's such a huge part of the game, and it's just beautiful. The way that it's arranged when you're in combat and when you're not in combat, it just flows so well together. I remember asking myself a few times in the past, if Final Fantasy VII would get a remake, would the One Winged Angel track be surpassed? And I have got to say that is an absolute yes. It's an amazing track. It's aggressive. It really makes me feel like I'm being threatened. It's just so well done. I can't believe that I'm saying that the music in the remake has surpassed what I've heard from the original. That's something rare to see. It's so rare to see something like that happen, in my opinion. And the remake has done it. It's crazy to me because this is just the first part of the adventure. And we still have a lot left for the rest of the remake. I can't even imagine how the Gold Saucer is gonna sound like, for instance. I can't even imagine how it's gonna sound like when we go to the City of the Ancients. Like, man. Damn. I think the voice actors have done a really amazing job. with bringing these characters to life, including even the voice actors that have brought, the background characters to life as well. They all have done a really good job, in my opinion. I'm just so surprised how many voice actors are in this game. When you look at the credits, you can see a whole huge list of characters. And one thing I noticed is Ray Chase. Who did he play as? Looking for some negatives, I would say the subquest is part of that. I feel that it's more of the same. Fetch here, fetch there. Even though there is some substance with getting to know these characters in Midgar and there's some story behind it, I feel that it's not as significant. But then again, I mean, these are subquests. But I would hope to see some kind of evolution to these subquests. So that's just my personal take on it. I know this might be a little nitpicky, but I feel that some of the dialogue and humor in the remake feels a little toned down in comparison to the original. It might be because of the times, or maybe because of that ethics department, but I feel that even though there are curse words flying around in the remake, but I feel that somehow the tone and the way the humor is presented feels a little more family friendly, in my opinion, in comparison to the original, even though they're both rated the same. I don't know, I just get that impression that the remake toned down a lot of that humor and dialogue. Well, certain dialogue. And I kind of miss that, because I feel that the original felt a lot more raw. I know it might not be too serious, but I do kind of miss that from the original. I think the most disappointing part about this remake is not getting any classic costumes after finishing the game. So I look back at games like Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is another great remake game. If you finish either Leon's or Claire's story, you get their classic costume, which is great for us old school Resident Evil 2 fans. So I find it very disappointing that we don't get that similar reward in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because honestly, I feel like with these remake games, getting classic costumes should be a standard reward, especially for old school fans. No matter whether you're an old school fan of Resident Evil or Final Fantasy or any other franchise out there. So, I mean, hopefully, maybe some DLC in the future. I don't know, but honestly, I think it should have been incorporated into the game already. So if there's any opportunity for part 2 to give us classic costumes, I think that would be my most highly requested thing out of everything. Speaking of requests, if by any chance, and I mean a millionth of a chance of a Square employee watching this video, I would love to ask not only just the classic costumes, but I would also like to request that hard mode would be available right out the gate when I first start part 2 of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because honestly, at least for me, I feel that it was just easy. The game wasn't really super hard. Yes, Sephiroth was pretty crazy, but we're talking about at the very end of the game. I didn't really feel like the game was very, very hard at all on normal. So, and of course I haven't tried out hard mode yet, but I mean, still, I would love to have that choice. I know that it's standard for a lot of games to have a certain tougher mode locked away until you complete the game a first time, but it would still be nice to just have it available for anybody who just wants more challenge, like me. So, please. Overall, I'm so happy to say that Final Fantasy VII is an amazing game. It went above and beyond my expectations, and that makes me so hyped up for part 2. I just really hope that Square can continue that momentum to part 2 and take it to next gen, especially because even though part 1 looks absolutely beautiful on PlayStation 4, I really hope that for next gen they take it to next gen, so that way we can get an even more beautiful game and they could expand the world with better hardware, which is something that I can't even imagine how that's gonna be like going to Kong and then going through the caves, meeting the Turks, and oh my god, seeing all the other summons with, oh man. I'm just so excited to see what we're gonna see in part 2. And I'm just so happy that I got to experience this game. Speaking of part 2, the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake has me thinking a whole bunch of things. That's why I had to take a little bit of time off to recollect my thoughts, because there's so many little crazy things happening. So we have Wedge alive, Biggs is alive. I have no clue about Zack. Like, that, is he in another dimension? Is he alive? Is he really dead? There are a lot of crazy changes in this game. Not just from the overall experience, but the ending really shows me that Square is going to take the story to a whole nother direction. Or maybe I might just be overthinking like every other theorist out there. I think there are two things, at least two things, that I feel right now might be more certain. One, there are a lot of details being changed, but overall we're going to get the same outcome. For example, like Aerith dying. And we saw certain images in the game where we see that, you know, Aerith is praying, and, you know, the white materia just drops, you know, when she gets stabbed, right? Or two, which also is a possibility, at least for me, is we're going to see maybe some different changes, similar stuff from the original, like we've seen so far from part 1, but the outcome can be vastly different. Much more different than what we're expecting. So for example, like, at least for me, I got the impression that Sephiroth has no interest in, say, killing Aerith. Maybe later, I don't know. I'm just going based off of his behavior. He seems not so interested in Aerith like he was in the original? I don't even remember right now. I just get that impression that Sephiroth seems a little, I don't know, much more focused on Cloud. Even though in the OG Final Fantasy VII game, he is very focused on Cloud, obviously. But I don't know, maybe I'm just overthinking too much. Wedge being alive, Biggs being alive, but we didn't see anything about Jesse during the ending, which I thought I would see Jesse, but there was nothing. So why? There has to be a reason why. A very specific reason. But again, I might be overthinking it. Is Zack alive? Is he just dead? Like, really dead? Or are we looking at another Zack from a different universe? Like, what really makes me think that we're seeing Zack from another universe or some other dimension, I have no clue what, is that stamp design that we saw at the ending. When the paper flipped and it passed by Zack, and we got to see that specific design for stamp. It looks very different from the stamp that we've seen during the remake. So it makes me wonder what's up with that. And there has to be a very specific reason. Also, Aerith and Red 13, there's something that they're hiding that they don't want to tell Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa. And because I noticed their expressions between each other, they seem like they're hiding something. Rufus is another one that, I don't know. I remember the scene where he's with Sung and he kind of has this like weird expression on his face. And I kind of wondered why he made that expression. It didn't make sense to me, especially that he was very quiet. He didn't say anything. And it made me suspicious about what is on his mind. So, I don't know, there's so many questions about this remake that I just wonder. Besides all the crazy stuff I mentioned, there's actually one thing that has had me thinking for the past few hours right now. And I'm actually starting to believe that this is going to go beyond Final Fantasy VII which is kind of why I mentioned that Final Fantasy VII Remake feels like the turning point for the franchise. It's because of what Sephiroth told Cloud at the edge of creation. So this is what Sephiroth said to Cloud. That which lies ahead does not yet exist. Our world will become a part of it one day, but I will not end, nor will I have you end. Is kind of telling me a couple of things. One, it's probably just an expansion to the Final Fantasy VII universe. Okay, that's simple enough, right? Or this could be something that Square is planning in the future for the entire franchise. Maybe it's sort of like a new sub-franchise that they want for Final Fantasy to become a part of. So maybe a multi-world type of epic where Cloud is going to meet up with Squall or even Noctis and Lightning and Cecil, and it's crazy just thinking about that part, because I don't understand what lies ahead does not yet exist mean. But I do understand when he says our world will become a part of it. What is that? What is that? It seems that the worlds of each of the mainline franchises might collide with another world specifically. I don't know. It's insane to me. I mean, it's pretty clear that Sephiroth wants to defy destiny, as he mentioned it to Cloud. And it seems that Aerith and Red 13 are trying to possibly preserve destiny and let the timeline go through its course. I'm just still blown away with what has happened in this game, but there are a lot of questions that I have on my mind, and I mean, you can tell already what I want to know. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think about the story and the ending of the game. What do you think might happen for the future of Final Fantasy VII, and possibly maybe even for the Final Fantasy franchise? So let me know in the comments section below. I think that is going to be it for now, because we won't have any answers till part 2, and without knowing anything else beyond what we know right now, everything is going to be at a halt. So that is going to be it. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and if you enjoyed this video, smash like, subscribe, and smash the bell button for more, and I'll see you later in the next video. Peace.